Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel and welcome to another Tuesday, which means another live stream of a watch along of a Godzilla movie. And oh boy, you guys are going to be in for. If you've never seen this movie, then I mean, let's put it this way: All Monsters Attack is often regarded as the worst of the Godzilla movies. I personally don't think so. I think it's just like too. I think the reaction this movie's gotten from the fans is just a little too harsh. So, yeah, we'll just get into it. I've talked about this in my review, but let's just see before we actually start the review. No, I've already reviewed this movie twice. Before we start, want to welcome you all in the chat right now. Got our regulars here: DeQuantate, Razor Bike, Spiders Prime, GZilla 100. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Everyone seems, well, a lot of people seem to be here. If you are lurking and not hanging out in the chat, then please do so. It'll be a lot of fun. Even if you aren't watching the movie, you could still come in and treat this just as a Q&A. It's just the movie is a little something to, I guess, spice things up. But yeah, let's get into this right now. GZilla100 says, "The hell is he?" Let me first. Okay, first of all, I want to point this out. I had to push the stream from 7 to 7:30 just because I was in the middle of something. It wasn't a big emergency, but I knew I was not going to make it on time, so I had to push the stream to 7:30. And plus, since this is one of the shorter Godzilla movies, it's an hour and 9 minutes, which barely qualifies as a feature film. Then we should end just around the same time as with the other movies. So I appreciate your patience. Next time, just please be patient when it comes to getting these streams started on time. I try the best I can. I'm a one-man show. I run the show. Like, not to sound egotistical, because I don't like being egotistical one little bit, but I run things around here, so, and only me. So there's just a lot of preparation when it comes to doing these live streams. It's not as easy as you'd think, because you have to like promote it on other social media, you have to announce it, you have to give everyone enough time to be ready. So it's just it's a lot of work. And by the way, when I said 7 p.m., I'm always talking about like 7 p.m. my time, Pacific Standard Time in California. So if you're anywhere else, you just do the math in where you are. And yeah, without further ado, I hope I didn't lose any of you by my sort of rant and how I run things here. Let's just hop into it. Yeah, this is All Monsters Attack, which I was surprised wasn't on HBO Max, but whatever the case, we are going to push the play button right now. You know, I would make a joke that the Criterion Collection is above a movie like All Monsters Attack, but when you consider that they've released Armageddon in their collection, this doesn't surprise me at all. And I actually own the Criterion Blu-ray of Armageddon, just because it's one of those things like, this actually exists, that the Criterion Collection would put out a Michael Bay movie. Whatever the case. Yeah, this is a very interesting movie. And it's interesting, like, here's my story with All Monsters Attack, or as it's known in the US, Godzilla's Revenge, which doesn't make any sense at all. Like, back in the days of Blockbuster, I rented out all of the Godzilla movies that they had. And yeah, and at the times, like, because I didn't have access to the internet, I thought I'd seen every Godzilla movie out there. And Godzilla's Revenge was actually the last movie that I saw that my local Blockbuster had. And because there was like a commercial at the end of the VHS for all the Godzilla movies that Scimitar was releasing on VHS, it's hard to talk with this song going on because all the lyrics, which actually they actually didn't subtitle. The classic media DVD subtitled the song, but not this. And special effects supervisor Eiji Tsuburaya, because Ishiro Honda actually directed the special effects this time around instead of just being the sole director. But anyway, at the the Scimitar was releasing a lot of Godzilla movies on VHS, and I'd seen all of them except for Godzilla vs. Mothra. And once I finished watching Godzilla's Revenge, I had finished watching all the movies there. And then my parents bought me the VHS for Mothra vs. Godzilla. And at the time I saw that movie, I was like, okay, done. I've seen every Godzilla movie that there is to be seen. And then that face. And anyway, and then once I had access to the internet, I realized, oh, there's several other Godzilla movies that I have not watched. So I'm not even close to finishing up the entire series. Right Guy 2015 is in the chat. Welcome. Razorbike says, how is LA? I've been thinking about moving there later in life. It is expensive. It is incredibly expensive. Oh, I just missed a part because I was talking, but like when there was a car that was turning, and they put in. Oh, now they've subtitled the song. Different lyrics, but. You know, Honda's been normally good at adding subtlety to his films when he tries to make a social statement. This is the furthest thing from subtlety, so it's amazing that Ishiro Honda would direct what was often regarded as the worst Godzilla movie. There's Kenji Sahara. What was I saying? There was something I was gonna say. Oh yeah, with that car. Like I was talking over it, but when the car was turning right before Ichiro says how the car sounds like Minya, they like purposely put in Minya's roar during that moment. And again, just not subtle. This movie is the furthest thing from subtlety. Someone compared the original Godzilla to Citizen Kane and this to Plan 9 from Outer Space. Can't blame them. I think that's a little too harsh. I mean, there's really... there are only a few movies that can be compared to Plan 9 from Outer Space, like The Room or Birdemic, where like it's a terribly made film, but at the same time, you have to admire the earnesty that went into making them. I'd compare this more to Rocky Five, but I'll explain later why I feel like this is in comparison to Rocky Five. Those zoom ins. Well, it looks like your mommy wasn't waiting. It's just you're trying to beat her home. I have not watched Birdemic since the first time I saw it, but I don't know. 50 million yen. How much is that? Nobody calls me chicken. And yeah, usually when that happens, it doesn't work. As we see Back to the Future, when someone tries to prove that they're not chicken, that never really works out in anyone's favor. Oh, 50 million yen is about $464,000 and $209. Yeah. Oh, there's Doctor Who from King Kong Escapes, or the old man from Godzilla Mothra King Ghidorah. Could you do a watch along of King Kong once you do the MCU watch along? That message was retracted, but if I do, it would have to be Patreon exclusive because, again, I'm only doing Godzilla in the MCU because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Movie theaters are closed, at least until this weekend in California. So I'm doing these watch alongs for everyone just to put out some more content or weekly content. If I do watch alongs in the future, I'm doing it as patron exclusives. So if I get to a specific amount of subscribers on Patreon, then I will be doing watch alongs for all kinds of movies. What the heck? What do you... I'm confused. What did you just step on? Screw your homework. You know, he could be watching cartoons or something. But oh, now he's switching. It's like he stays on the news for a certain amount of time just so we can get that little bit of reminder that those two robbers are going to show up later on. I think it was a smoldering tool or something. I mean, there was definitely smoke coming out of it. There's a Godzilla figure. You know, with this movie and Godzilla vs. Hedorah, well, it's weirder in Godzilla vs. Hedorah that there would be toys made of these giant destructive creatures. I mean, here it makes sense because everything, like Godzilla, Monster Island, and all the monsters are in this kid's imagination, so we could assume that this takes place in, like, the real world. There's a surprising amount of... Oh, it's Pan-American. Okay. I was about to say, there's a surprising amount of white people on board. But since it's Pan-American, that makes a whole lot of sense. Um... This kid must live a sad life. Like I feel like there's some earnesty with the fact that, like, it's a movie about, like, a kid who's really an outcast, and he tries to get his life lessons from like Godzilla and all these monsters. So it has some good ideas and a good intention to it, but it just butchers that like its lessons later down the line. There's stock footage here of Godzilla beating the crap out of Kamacuras again for no reason. It's weird that the American version of this is called Godzilla's Revenge because Godzilla's not really getting revenge as much as he's being an asshole. Just beating the crap out of that Kamacuras. It's like, what did he ever do to them? Would you say Godzilla the Planet Eater is the Fantastic of the Godzilla series? Oh, no. Fantastic Four is so much worse than Godzilla Planet Eater or the Godzilla anime trilogy as a whole. That's clear stock footage from King Kong Escapes. Stock footage from Destroy All Monsters, and so is this footage here with those obviously composited palm trees on the right side of the screen. I am at the 15-minute and 20-second mark, if that helps. This fight is so terrible. It might be symbolic of the kid getting revenge at the end. Then, again, why is it called Godzilla's Revenge? And also, if that's the case, that's actually more of a problem for the movie. Kids dream of giant condor and not Rodan. Yeah, that is sad right there. It's amazing how Kamakris has just a desire for human flesh. And there's an Alice in Wonderland parallel. Except rather than being transported to Wonderland, he's stuck in an actual pit. And that's the only footage of Kamakris that was used for this movie and wasn't stock footage. You know, I going back to this, like, I like what Justin Toner says. Like, he's so, like even in his wildest dreams, this kid comes up with like the lamest scenarios. Like, yeah, again, a giant condor, but no Rodan or Mothra. That was a weird like piece of music when that vine was coming down from the mouth of the cave or the pit. It's like that those like CSI or Law and Order ding dong. Why was he not killed or even injured? Because this is all everything on Monster Island's a dream. Everything involving the monsters in this movie is not real. It actually takes place inside this kid's dreams. We don't lie like humans. Hey, that's... I think it's common knowledge that this movie has Minya voiced very differently in the American version, where he sounds like Goofy. That's the only new monster of the movie, and yeah, that's, I don't know. So Ichiro befriends Godzilla's son, and they both have monsters that bully them, or who conveniently have the same name. Yeah, Gabara was like, I don't know, just, there's a reason why he's never shown up in any other movie or piece of Godzilla media after this. So apparently Ishiro has to deal with he only has to deal with two Disney dads. I mean Disney parents, where it's like they're out working constantly, but I like how he's not like bitter at them. Gabra was in a prequel for the Godzilla anime series. Oh, that's sad. Even Gabra shouldn't be subjected to that. Yeah, this really, I would be surprised if this movie was like inspired to cash it, inspired by the Gamera series at the time. Run in the other, walk the other way. I mean, I get what this movie's trying to do. That's an obvious matte painting. It's trying to like, it's trying to be have a message to kids about standing up for yourselves and be brave. Don't let others push you around, or don't live in fear. But what this movie does later down the line, especially at the end, it butchers its message completely by saying that the only way for you to be brave and stand up is through violence and fighting. Which that's why I compare this more to Rocky V, because it's entirely pointless. It's an entirely pointless movie. Like if you if you took that movie out of the entire franchise, it would not have been missed at all. Because this movie, given that all the monsters are in a dreamlike scenario, this movie doesn't really play a part in the Godzilla series at all. And the Rocky series has just gone out of its way to retcon the fifth movie. And then, like, again, with Rocky V, like, it has a message of how, like, violence is the answer, which, again, not a good message at all. I forget how he ends up with the... put that away, kid. You don't know where it's bad, no? I forget how he ends up with the two bank robbers. Are they in the building, or I really do forget. Oh, they're already in the building. Getting back to the Gamera comparison, like, it boggles my mind that Tanaka would want the Godzilla series to go down this route. Wait, what is... Anyway, this moment with the two robbers is just so ridiculous. Oh, that's how. That's how he ends up with the two robbers. But yeah, like, Gamera has always been in the yeah, Gamera has always been in the shadow of Godzilla, and it just perplexes me that Godzilla would kind of, this movie especially, would just stoop down to that level. Not entirely sure what the point of that was. Him, like, bouncing on a car, or just... it doesn't look like a junker. I mean, considering it's 1969, it looks like a pretty good car for me. Yeah, that kid, like, the points you want to feel sorry for him because his parents are always out. At the same time, he's a brat. Like he could be a Ishiro could be a brat at points. Well, yeah, Godzilla's. I mean, like here's what. What was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean, Godzilla is like the audience for Godzilla movies at this point were kids, but I mean, a lot of the Godzilla movies beforehand were perfectly accessible to kids already, so there's no reason to like bring them down to a further level. I mean, like compared to, especially when you compare to the Return of Godzilla and the original Godzilla, like all the Godzilla movies between 1954 and 1984 were perfectly accessible. Well, maybe not Godzilla Raids Again, but like kids could watch them. Even as far back as King Kong versus Godzilla, he started becoming popular with kids. I suppose so, because that movie's definitely more lighthearted. But then again, kids wouldn't even like kids would only be focusing on the giant monster action, and they wouldn't even be giving a damn about the social commentary of that movie. Okay, that looks good. Huh? Like East Asian food is always the best. Korean barbecue, Japanese food, Chinese food. Something about like their food that just is so good. Oh, they're police? I thought they were the railroad workers. Okay, I definitely do not remember that part. The glove. Okay, I'm gonna ask this right now, because I get comment like some of you are people. I'm not gonna say who, but some of you are writing in the chat with like comments that have like super explicit language. I don't mind that once in a while, uh, but every like most of the comments that people write that have explicit language, I'm just not going to show them at all because There's only so many times I could see I can allow the F word. All right. So just kind of pull back on cursing in the comments, or at least in the chat in terms of these live streams. Okay, I'm not sure why a hurricane blew when Gabara showed up. Like, why is there wind suddenly blowing? Nice little throwback to Minya loving those melons. Man, Minya's got some, or Minilla, however he is named, he's got some fangs. Godzilla says I have to fight my own battles, you know. Okay, another thing when I first saw this movie for the first time, I didn't know that Ebirah Horror of the Deep was its own movie. So I assumed that all this stock footage of Godzilla fighting Ebirah was made for this movie. I didn't know it was stock footage until I actually discovered the movie that this came from. And they do a terrible job at the night for day trick. Because it's daytime where Ishiro and Minilla are, but it's clearly nighttime when Godzilla and Ebirah are either fighting or playing volleyball with a rock. You know, the way that rock was going, it seemed like it was head way too far for it to hit them. Especially considering that they're close enough to get splashed on by water. Yeah, it really makes no... Like, story-wise, it makes no... I mean, okay, why am I even arguing with this? Because this all takes place in Ishiro's head. So, none of this is actually real, but if it were, it just still doesn't make any sense for Godzilla to just randomly attack these monsters. And now it's all of a sudden daytime. And Ebirah only lost his tiny claw, but he'll grow it back, and it's nighttime again. Yeah, it's weird that the Godzilla suit just keeps changing. And so we leave the cookie monster looking Godzilla. Yeah, we leave the cookie monster Godzilla and then cut to the ugliest looking Godzilla ever conceived. And another sequence of Godzilla being an asshole to giant monsters. Here's something funny coming up. So that weird pile of rocks there, that's composited in because this is the sequence where Kumanga's almost about to kill Minilla, who's right there, if you saw it very briefly. And obviously you want to try your best to hide Minilla. So that was like, I mean, that reminded me of when the 2011 DVD of Star Wars edited in those CGI rocks in front of R2-D2. But it makes more sense here because they're trying to hide Minilla. Yeah, that like there were some good compositing shots throughout the series, but those rocks was pretty obvious. Yeah, Battlefield Earth is just like nothing. The most talented people on the planet um could never save Battlefield Earth. And Kumanga just like tips over. I've never really focused on this aspect of Gabara, but that yellow hair or orange hair on top of his head is just so like, why the hair? Why? We didn't need that shot. We didn't need that close up of Minya's crotch or Minilla, whatever his name is. Will I buy the Gamera Blu-ray set when it comes out? Maybe. I mean, the Gamera movies that I really care about owning on Blu-ray I already own, which is the Gamera trilogy from the 90s. Probably yes, but I don't think it's going to be a huge priority. That was a very quick fight. What do you think about it? Like, if this is supposed to parallel Ishiro's world, why, like, Gabara? This is the bad thing about talking about Gabara and Gamera in the same like live chat. Like, it makes, like, considering how big Gabara is, wouldn't Gabara be an adult in comparison to Godzilla's son? Humans coming to invade our island again. Like, why? Oh, those compositing trees. Again, I know this is all in a kid's head, but why would the Japanese Self-Defense Force just randomly send a fleet of jets to attack Godzilla and destroy Monster Island? Godzilla wins all the time. No, really, no contest. Like, I love how in that shot Godzilla is looking up. He's looking up in the sky, and he catches that plane without even looking. Again, this is the Cookie Monster Godzilla. And now we switch to the he kind of reminds me of Kermit the Frog, this Godzilla suit. And this is the first time 42 minutes in, and this is the first new footage of Godzilla made for this movie here. Again, 42 minutes out of an hour and 9-minute long movie. There's some shots where Godzilla... There's some shots of this suit that kind of remind me of Kermit the Frog. Not a whole lot, but... I think it's mainly in Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Okay, Godzilla's continuing to support him. That's... there's something I always find so sad. Okay, that's how he gets in the hands of the two robbers. Well, at least Godzilla seems to be a better dad. You know, honestly, I would much rather... my dad doesn't do this when I was a kid, but... like, I would rather take a dad that is off at work constantly, but still loves me, rather than a dad who physically abuses me until I get something right. So, yeah, I would take Kenji Sahara in this movie over Godzilla as a father. He stood up to Godzilla before, so why is... I don't understand why it's so hard for people to comprehend that a giant ape a giant ape could stand up against a giant dinosaur, even if it's a radioactive one. Compared to Son of Godzilla, he seems to be better at not beating Minya as much. He beats Minya about as much. I don't know. Oh, there's the crazy mayor from Yojimbo. It should be pointed out that this is the last Godzilla movie to be made with the studio system that was going on in Japan at the time, because up until 1970, the Japanese studios had actors under contract, similar to how American studios had actors under contract in the 30s, or back in the early days of Hollywood. And because the Japanese film industry was doing not too great at this time, they had to basically release the actors from contract by 1970. So throughout the rest of the Godzilla series in the Showa era, you will not see so many of these iconic actors reoccur as often. Okay, we're already heading back to Monster Island. That was fast. More physical abuse. Yeah, Gabara is like... He's not entirely good at this, is he? See, this is where like the movie's good intentions fall apart. Godzilla kicks his own son and forces him to fight. Like what why? Yeah, see, this is where I like kind of take issue on Godzilla not beating his son as much as he does in Son of Godzilla, because Godzilla only steps on Minya's tail once. He doesn't kick him and forces him to fight. Yeah, Yeah, this I don't know about this movie. Okay, this part's I guess worth it. This part coming up. And they just flip because you could see in the background the mountain is twirling along with Gabra. Yeah, why would you fight? Why would you bite Godzilla? I do like how at this point, it's like, um, there's a shot where Minya tries to step in. It's coming up somewhere, and Godzilla's just like, Minya, I know this is your bully, but stay out of this fight. Yeah, right here. Like Godzilla just pushes Minya back. Yeah, this is the only. This is the only scene of the movie that makes it somewhat worthwhile. And one thing that should be worth mentioning is that Hiroshi Sakita plays Gabara, and he basically played Nakajima's enemy in several other Godzilla movies. He was Ebirah, Sanda, the Brown Gargantua, and Gorosaurus. And this is the last time these two would actually like be in a Godzilla movie together and fight each other. You know, if they were out, he could have he could have booked it while the two robbers were distracted. Yeah, I this movie is just like it has the potential, admittedly, but it just aims in it just it's aiming in all the wrong places. There's only like 10 minutes of this movie left, so I forget how he gets out. Or what exactly happens. Boom! Okay, that's how he gets out. The robbers do a terrible job at tying him up. And they don't bother to lock the door. So wait, did the car just... Did the engine just start? Or did the car just roll away on its own? I know it started, but I expected the car to just move and just roll away on its own. I feel like this whole robber subplot, it just feels like manufactured conflict. Like, in all honesty, there was no reason for this to be a part of this story. Like, Ishiro having to deal with the real life Gabara, I think is enough story that you need. But again, this movie just butchers all its goodwill and the message that's trying to set up. Wow, that was flimsy. These weird stingers are just... I don't know what to make of them. This, okay, yeah, this... Like, this movie is just so in your face about all the plots that all the little plot points that sets up. This is so dumb. Yeah, this movie, like, if I were to sum this up in terms of Ishiro Honda's career, it's like Ishiro Honda making this movie and also having made the original Godzilla. It's the equivalent of Francis Ford Coppola making The Godfather, and then all of a sudden, he goes and makes Jack years later. It's like, how did this go so wrong so quickly? Like, like it's amazing that it's hard to believe that Honda directed this. Well, at least it's not physical violence. Jack is terrible. That's all that needs to be said about it. You know, it's a good thing that he's not scarred for life after that. Well, yeah, it's like, yeah, they need the money, but your dad's also working. They could have done more with that moment there, where the mom's trying to hide her, just her feelings of the fact that her son was kidnapped and almost killed. like it could have been, you could have done more with that. There's so much that this movie could have done with so many of the angles of the parents not being home all the time because of work, and with being brave and standing up to your fears, that could have made this, again, not one of the best Godzilla movies, but at least a good movie. But they just dropped the ball completely. And again, Ishiro Honda directing this just makes it even worse. Especially with this moment, this entire ending. Like, outside of the fact that this fight scene is just so poorly constructed, like, it's poorly filmed with a lot of these very bizarre screenshots. Again, the fact that it's like the message of the movie appears to be stand up to your fears by beating up those who intimidate you. Like, this movie's priorities are just so wrong. Like, its priorities are just all over the place. And then to go over and just like be like just and now he's now Razorback, is that Taken 2, or is that Taken 2 with Liam Neeson, or is this something completely different? Jeez. Yeah, I'm totally gonna stop this train. Yeah, Ishiro's gonna get a spanking tonight. Okay, I never saw Taken 2, so I can't really verify if this is like that or not. But yeah, Ishiro's gonna get a spanking when we gets home. When Dad gets home. Whew, man, that movie is the less that's said about it, the better. I mean, I I think, like, people saying that this is one of the worst, if not the worst Godzilla movie, I can't blame them. Like, I can't really argue with that, but at the same time, um, uh, like, feel like there are some Godzilla movies that have come out that are far worse than this. I think, because, again, this movie, like, it tries to do something, it tries to have a, like, more heartfelt story, and it tries to do something, kind of unique. Again, the keyword being try, but again, its priorities are just so misguided, and the message that it's trying to conceive is just butchered by the time you get to the end of the movie. It's just not good at all. But that being said, I think like as the whole package, like, I'm saying this now, as we go through these Godzilla movies later down the line, my opinions will change. But I think the entire anime trilogy is worse than this movie. I think Godzilla vs. Gigan is worse. Again, I'm saying this now, so my opinion might change. I think Final Wars, it might be worse than this movie. I mean, Final Wars is more entertaining, but that's about it. Final Wars has literally no substance at all. And yeah, it's a good thing that Ishiro Honda came back with Terror of Mechagodzilla. He would help his friend Akira Kurosawa with some of his later films. And Ishiro Honda directed the brilliant tunnel sequence in Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. So Honda has definitely done a lot of stuff. Well, maybe not a lot, but some stuff afterwards with this movie. And yeah, that's... Again, I'm saying that now, Gzilla 100, that Final Wars is worse than this movie. I might change it, but Final Wars really is on the bottom of my like Godzilla list. Like, so I don't know where... I'd have to re-rank the movies, but Final Wars is like it's a movie that it's a Godzilla movie that almost doesn't want to be a Godzilla movie. But again, we've got a long way to go before we get to Final Wars, so just save your angry comments for when we get to it. But yeah, that's All Monsters Attack, and we ended around the same time we usually end these. Next time, Thursday actually, is Godzilla vs. Hedorah, which I mean, Spiders Prime said the weird one, which I mean, weird does not even begin to describe Godzilla vs. Hedorah, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that Thursday. So once again, thank you guys for tuning into this live stream. If you're watching this in post, then I hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to check these out when they are live. And if you've been watching these live but are lurking in the background without commenting, please do so. I encourage interaction amongst you guys, and I encourage interaction amongst these live streams, whether it's with other commenters or with me. If you really like what I'm doing with the channel, you want to help support me financially, then you could go to patreon.com/TheRealMrRobinson. And if you want me to do other watch-alongs for other movies, once I finish with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and for $1 a month, you could get access to those live watch-alongs. I want to get to a specific number when it comes to patrons before I start putting out patron-exclusive content. So again, if you could support financially, I recommend doing that. If not, then that's totally fine. Your YouTube subscriptions are more than enough. And until next time, this is the Real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.